Alright, first story is Dagon. I am writing this under an appreciable mental strain, since by tonight I shall be no more. Penniless, and at the end of my supply of the drug which alone makes life I can bear the torture no longer. I shall. Sorry. I can bear the torture no longer, and shall cast myself from this garret window into the squalid. Fuck! Hello, Piku. Welcome into the reading stream. I got Lovecraft in front of me. I keep fucking up. Oh, we got an ad break incoming. Well, I don't know who's here, but I'll just wait it out. How are you doing, Piku? Let's see. Chat in case. Sub. Sorry, I'll be quiet. No, you're allowed to talk. I encourage chatters. I welcome anyone who wants to talk in chat. I'm just saying what's happening because I don't know how long you've been part of my community, and the community challenge happened like towards the start of October. I'm actually very sick, lol. Is it better that you've popped into a more chill stream then, because it's just gonna be like me like literally reading a book to chat? I mean, hell, if this does well, I might keep doing these, but who knows? Isn't you're saying that it's like it's good that we're doing this today because you're sick and this is more of a chill stream than what I normally do. Ads are over. All right, ads gonna be over. Although it might make me sleep. I was considering putting the fishing game up, but I didn't really think it would make sense for this. I figured him out in a good way. All right, story one, Dagon. I am writing this under an appreciable mental strain, since by tonight I shall be no more. Penniless, and at the end of my supply of the drug which alone makes life endurable. Bear the torture no longer. I'll cast myself from this garret window into the squalid street below. Do not think from my slavery to morphine that I am a weakling, degenerate. When you have read these hastily scrawled pages, you may guess, though never fully realize, why it is that I must have forgetfulness or death. It was in one of the most open and least frequented parts of the broad Pacific that the packet of which I was supercargo fell a victim to the German sea raid. The Great War was then at its very beginning, and the enemy's navy had not reached its later degree of ruthlessness, so that our vessel was made a legitimate prize, whilst we of her crew were treated with all the fairness and consideration due us as naval prisoners. So Alex, welcome in. So liberal, indeed, was the discipline of our captors, that 5 days after we were taken, I managed to escape alone in a small boat with water and provisions for a good length of time. When I finally found myself adrift and free, I had but little idea of my surroundings. Never a competent navigator, I could only guess vaguely by the sun and stars that I was somewhat south of the equator. The longitude. Fuck it. Please don't spam emotes. Of the longitude I knew nothing, and no island or coastline was in sight. The weather kept fair, and for uncounted days I drifted aimlessly beneath the scorching sun, waiting either for some passing ship or to be cast on the shores of some habitable land. But neither ship nor land appeared, and I began to despair in my solitude upon the heaving vastness of unbroken blue. The change happened whilst I slept. Its details I shall never know, for my slumber, though troubled and dream-infested, was continuous. When at last I awaked, It was to discover myself half sucked into a slimy expanse of hellish black mire, which extended about me in monotonous undulations as far as I could see, and in which my boat lay grounded some distance away. Though one might well imagine that my first sensation would be of wonder at so prodigious, bleh, at so prodigious and unexpected a transformation of scenery, I was in reality more horrified than astonished. For there was in the air and in the rotting soil a sinister quality which chilled me to the very core. The region was putrid, with the carcasses of decaying fish and of other less describable things, which I saw protruding from the nasty mud of the unending plain. Perhaps I should not hope to convey in mere words unutterable hideousness that can dwell in absolute silence and barren immensity. There was nothing. There was nothing within hearing and nothing in sight, save a vast reach of black slime. Yet the very completeness of this fuck, very completeness of the stillness and the homogeneity of the landscape oppressed me with a nauseating fear. The sun was blazing down from a sky which seemed to me almost black in its cloudless, as though reflecting the inky marsh beneath my feet. As I crawled into the stranded boat, I realized that only one theory could explain my position. Through some unprecedented volcanic upheaval, a portion of the ocean floor must have been thrown to the surface, exposing regions which for innumerable God damn it. For innumerable millions of years had lain hidden under unfathomable watery depths. So great was the extent of the new land which had risen beneath me, that I could not detect the faintest noise of the surging ocean. Strain my ears as I might, nor there were any sea fowl to prey upon the dead things. Several hours I sat thinking or brooding in the boat, which lay upon its side, afforded a slight shade as the sun moved across the heavens. Day progressed, the ground lost some of its stickiness, seemed likely to dry sufficiently for traveling purposes in a short time. That night I slept but little. The next day I made for myself a pack containing food and water, preparatory to an overland journey in search of the vanished sea and possible rescue. On the third morning I found the soil dry enough to walk upon with ease. The odor of the fish was maddening, but I was much too concerned with graver things to mind so slight an evil. Set out boldly for an unknown goal. All day I forged steadily westward, guided by a faraway hummock which rose higher than any other elevation on the rolling desert. That night I encamped, and on the following day still traveled towards the hummock, though that object seemed scarcely nearer than when I had first espied it. Spied it. I don't know. By the fourth evening I attained the base of the mound, which turned out to be much higher than it had appeared from a distance, an intervening valley setting it out in sharper relief from the general surface. Too weary to ascend, I slept in the shadow of the hill. I know not why my dreams were so wild that night, but here the waning and fantastically gibbous moon had risen far above the eastern plain. I was awake in the cold perspiration, determined to sleep no more. Such visions as I had experienced were too much for me to endure again. In the glow of the moon I saw how unwise I'd been to travel by day. Without the glare of the parching sun, my journey would have cost me less energy. I now felt quite able to perform the ascent which had deterred me at sunset. Picking up my pack, I started for the crest of the eminence. I have said that the unbroken monotony of the rolling plain was a source of vague horror to me, but I think my horror was greater when I gained the summit of the mound and down the other side to an immeasurable pit or canyon. Black recesses the moon had not yet soared high enough to. I felt myself on the edge of the world, peering over the rim into a fathomless chaos of eternal night. Through my terror ran curious reminiscences of Paradise Lost and of Satan's hideous climb through the unfashioned realms of darkness. The moon climbed higher in the sky. I began to see that the slopes of the valley were not quite so perpendicular as I had imagined. Ledges and outcroppings of rock afforded fairly easy footholds for a descent. Most after a drop of a few hundred feet, the declivity became very gradual. Urged on by an impulse which I cannot definitely analyze, I scrambled with difficulty down the rocks and stood on the gentler slope beneath, gazing into the Stygian deep where no light had yet penetrated. All at once my attention was captured by a vast and singular object on the opposite slope, which rose steeply about 100 yards ahead of me. An object that gleamed whitely in the newly bestowed rays of the ascending moon. That it was merely a gigantic piece of stone, I soon assured myself. I was conscious of a distinct impression that its contour and location were not altogether the work of nature. Closer scrutiny filled me with sensations I cannot express. For despite its enormous magnitude and its position in an abyss which had yawned at the bottom of the sea since the world was young, I perceived beyond a doubt that the strange object was a well-shaped monolith. Massive bulk had known the workmanship, perhaps the worship of living and thinking creatures. Dazed and frightened, dazed and frightened, yet not without a certain thrill of the scientist's and archaeologist's delight, I examined my surroundings more closely. The moon, now near the zenith, shone weirdly and vividly above the towering steeps that hemmed in the chasm, and revealed that the fact that a far-flung body of water flowed at the bottom, winding out of sight in both directions, and almost lapping at my feet as I stood on the slope. Across the chasm, the wavelets washed the base of the cyclopean monolith, on whose surface I could now trace both inscriptions and crude sculptures. The writing was in a system of hieroglyphics unknown to me, and unlike anything I had ever seen in books, consisting for the most part of conventionalized aquatic symbols such as fishes, eels, octopi, crustaceans, mollusks, whales, and the like. Several characters obviously represented marine things that are unknown modern world, whose decomposing forms I had observed on the ocean plain. It was the pictorial carving, however, that did the most was to hold me spellbound. Plainly visible across the intervening water on account of their enormous size, were an array of bas reliefs subjects would have excited the envy of a Dore. I think that these things were supposed to depict men, at least a certain sort of men. Though the creatures were shown as sporting like fishes in the waters of some marine grotto, or paying homage to the at some monolithic shrine which appeared to be under the waves as well. Their faces and forms I dare not speak in detail, for the mere remembrance makes me grow faint. Grotesque beyond the imagination of a Poe or a Bulwer, they were damnably human in general outline, despite webbed hands and feet, shockingly wide, flabby lips, glassy, bulging eyes, and other features less pleasant to recall. Curiously enough, they seem to have been chiseled badly out of proportion. Their scenic background. For one of the creatures was shown in the act of killing a whale represented but little larger than himself. I remarked, as I say, their grotesqueness and strange size, but in a moment decided that they were merely the imaginary gods of some primitive fishing or seafaring tribe, some tribe whose last descendant had perished eras before the first ancestor of the Piltdown or Neanderthal man was born. Awestruck at this unexpected glimpse into a past beyond the conception of the most daring anthropologist, I stood musing whilst the moon cast queer reflections on the silent channel before me. Then suddenly I saw it. With only a slight churning to mark its rise to the surface, the thing slid into view above the dark waters, vast, Polyphemus-like, and loathsome. It darted like a stupendous monster of nightmares to the monolith, about which it flung its gigantic scaly arms, and while it bowed its hideous head and gave vent to certain measured sounds, I think I went mad then. Of my frantic ascent of the sloping cliff, and of my delirious journey back to the stranded boat, I remember little. I believe I sang a great deal, and laughed oddly when I was unable to sing. I have indistinct recollections of a great storm some time after I reached the boat. At any rate, I know that I heard peals of thunder and other tones which nature utters only in wild and terrible. When I came out of the shadows, I was in a San Francisco hospital, brought thither, brought thither by the captain of the American ship which had picked up my boat in mid-ocean. In my delirium I said much, but found that my words had been given scant attention. Of any land upheaval in the Pacific, my rescuers knew nothing, nor did I deem it necessary to insist upon a thing which I knew they could not believe. Once I sought out a celebrated ethnologist, mused him with a peculiar question regarding the ancient Philistine legend of Dagon, the fish god. But soon perceiving that he was hopelessly conventional, I did not press my inquiries. It is at night, when the moon is gibbous and waning, that I see that thing. I tried morphine. The drug has only given transient surcease, and has drawn me into its clutches as a hopeless slave. So now I am to end matters, having written a full account for the information or contemptuous amusement of my fellow men. I ask myself if it could not have all been a pure phantasm, a mere freak of fever, as I lay sun-stricken and raving in the open boat after my escape from the German man of war. This I ask myself, but ever does there come before me a hideously vivid vision in reply. I cannot think of the deep sea without shuddering at the nameless things that may this very moment be crawling and floundering on its slimy bed, worshipping their ancient stone idols and carving their own detestable likeness on submarine obelisks of water-soaked granite. I dream of a day when they may rise above the billows to drag down in their reeking talons the remnants of puny, war-exhausted mankind. Of a day when the land shall sink and the dark ocean floor shall ascend amidst the universal pandemonium. The end is near. I hear a noise at the door, as of some immense slippery body lumbering against me. It shall not find me. God, that hand! The window! The window! I have no idea if that was at all any good. I'm gonna flip through and decide on what to read next. I'm gonna go for an hour or two. Holy shit, Call of Cthulhu is long. But Alright. Just finished Dagon, trying to decide which one to read next. Like, alright, next we're reading Nameless City. Depending on how far I am into this, I'll decide on what to read next. I want to finish with probably Call of Cthulhu because that's like the main story. But we'll find out. When I drew nigh the nameless city, I knew it was accursed. I was traveling in a parched and terrible valley under the moon. Afar I saw it protruding uncannily, above the sands as part of a corpse may protrude from an ill-made grave. Fear spoke from the age-worn stones of this hoary survivor of the deluge, this great-grandmother of the eldest pyramid. Uazora repelled me and bade me retreat from antique and sinister secrets that no man should see, and no man had ever dared to see. Remote in the desert of Araby lies the nameless city, crumbling and inarticulate, its low walls nearly hidden by the sands of uncounted ages. It must have been thus before the first stones of Memphis were laid, while the bricks of Babylon were yet unbaked. There is no legend so old as to give it a name or to recall that it was ever alive, but it is told of in whispers around campfires and muttered about by grandmas in the tents of sheiks, that all the tribes shun it without wholly knowing why. It was of this place that Abdul al-Hazred, the mad poet, dreamed on the night before he sang his unexplainable couplet. That is not dead which can eternal lie, and with strange eons even death may die. I should have known that the Arabs had good reason for shunning the nameless city told of in strange tales, seen by no living man. Yet I defied them and went into the untrodden waste with my camel. I alone have seen it. That is why that is why no other face bears such hideous lines of fear as mine. By no other man shivers so horribly when the night wind rattles the windows. When I came upon it in ghastly stillness of unending sleep, it looked at me, chilly from the rays of a cold moon in the desert's heat. And as I returned its look, I forgot my triumph at finding it. I stopped still with my camel to wait for the dawn. For hours I waited till the east grew gray and the stars faded. The gray turned to roseal light, edged with gold. I heard a moaning and saw a storm of sand stirring among the antique stones. For the sky was clear and the vast reach of the desert still. Then suddenly above the desert's far rim came the blazing edge of the sun, seen through the tiny sandstorm which was passing away. In my fevered state, I fancied that from some remote depth there came a crash of musical metal to hail the fiery disk at Memnon, as Memnon hails it from the banks of the Nile. My ears rang and my imagination seethed as I led my camel slowly across the sand to that unvocal stone place. Using the ads. My ears rang and my imagination seethed as I led my camel slowly across the sand to that unvocal stone place. That place too old for Egypt and Moreau to remember. That place which I had alone living men had seen. In and out amongst the shapeless foundations of houses and palaces, finding never a carving or inscription to tell of those. Hello, Olivia. Welcome in. In and In and out amongst the shapeless foundations of houses and palaces I wandered, finding never a carving or inscription to tell of those men. Men they were who built the city and dwelt therein so long ago. The antiquity of the spot was wholesome, but was unwholesome, and I longed to encounter some sign or device to prove that the city was indeed fashioned by mankind. There were certain proportions and dimensions in the I did not like. It's the reading stream that everyone contributed channel points for. I had with me many tools and dug much within the walls of the obliterated edifice. But progress was slow and nothing significant was revealed. When night and the moon returned, I felt a chill wind had brought new that I did not dare to reach the city. As I went outside the antique walls to sleep, a small, sliding sandstorm gathered behind me, blowing over the gray stones, though the moon was bright in most of the. I awaked just at dawn from a pageant of horrible dreams, my ears ringing from some metallic peal. I saw the sun peering redly through the last gusts of a little sandstorm that hovered over the nameless city and marked the quietness of the rest of the landscape. Once more I ventured within brooding that swelled beneath the sand like an ogre under a coverlet, and again dug vainly for the relics of the forgotten race. At noon I rested, and in the afternoon I spent much time tracing the walls, the bygone streets, and the outlines of the nearly vanished buildings. I saw that the city had been mighty indeed, and wondered at the sources of its greatness. Myself, I pictured all the splendors of an age so distant that the Chaldea could not recall it, and thought of Sarnath the Doomed that stood in the land of Minar when mankind was young, and of Ib that was carven of grey stone before mankind existed. All at once I came upon a place where the bedrock rose stark through the sand and formed a low cliff. Here I saw with joy what seemed to promise further traces of an. How the fuck do you say that? Antediluvian people, hewn rudely on the face of the cliff that wore the unmistakable facades of several small, squat rock houses or temples, whose interiors might preserve many secrets of ages too remote for calculation. Those sandstorms had long since effaced any carvings which may have been outside. Very low and sand-choked were all of the dark apertures near me. Ad break incoming in 1 minute. I will pause once that starts. But I cleared one with my spade and just crawled through it, carrying a torch to reveal whatever mysteries it might hold. When I was inside, I saw that the cavern was indeed a temple, but held plain in signs of the race that lived and worshipped before the desert was a desert. Primitive altars, pillars, and niches, all curiously low, were not absent, and though I saw no sculptures nor frescoes, there were many singular stones clearly shaped into symbols by artificial means. The lowness of the chiseled chamber was very strange, for I could hardly more than kneel upright, but the area was so great that my torch shewed only part at a time. I will there while the ads run. Olivia, how are you doing? Anyone else watching? How's everyone doing? How are y'all enjoying the stream? Is there anything I should be doing different? Wait. No, you're not very. I don't think you're very far back. Just I was responding to a message on Discord while the ad break was running because it I don't have any problem with the reading. The reading now. How far back am I? No, you're not. I'm doing good. How are you? I am doing good. Uh, not quite sure how I'm feeling about like doing the reading stream because it feels like this is just kind of a dead stream. Yeah, I only just looked at my view count. I got 4 viewers, which I know shouldn't be watching the views, but just it's been way lower than normal. I'm painting my nails. It's very messy. Damn. Ad break is ending in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome back, everybody, from the ads. So, like I said, like I said before, we were reading The Nameless City. We've only read Dagon so far, and depending on how I'm feeling after this, we will either read maybe 1, 2 more, or we will go straight to Call of Cthulhu. I don't know how long I want this stream to be, truthfully. Anyone else for the first time in years? I hope it's going well. Just answering a quick message on Discord, and then we will be back to reading. Alright. The lowness of the chiseled chamber was very strange, for I could hardly more than kneel upright, but the area was so great that my torch shewed. I don't know what that word means, and Lovecraft keeps fucking saying it. Sh- Old-fashioned spelling of show. Why the fuck? Oh, I'm sorry. What? Who the fuck? Why? No, this is what I keep seeing. That is what I keep seeing, and I look it up. It says that it's an old-fashioned way of saying the word show, like this. Whole time I thought it was like some weird old word. No, it's just fucking show being spelled weird. I want to kill whoever spelled it that way. That is so dumb. Yeah. My torch showed only part at a time. I shuddered oddly in some of the far corners for certain altars and stones. Fuck off! The humidifier turned on. Certain altars and stones suggested forgotten rites of terrible, revolting, and inexplicable nature, and made me wonder what manner of men could have made and frequented such a temple. When I had seen all that the place contained, I crawled out again, avid to find what the other temples might yield. Night had now approached, yet the tangible things I had seen made curiosity stronger than fear, so that I did not flee from the long moon-cast shadows that had daunted me when I first saw the nameless city. In the twilight, I cleared another aperture, and with a new torch crawled into it, finding more vague stones, symbols, though nothing more definite than the other temple had contained. The room was just as low, but much less broad, ending in a very narrow passage crowded with obscure and cryptical shrines. About these shrines I was prying when the noise of wind and of my camel outside broke through the stillness and drew me forth to see what could have frightened the beast. The moon was gleaming vividly over the primeval ruins, lighting a dense cloud of sand that seemed blown by a strong but decreasing wind from some point along the cliff ahead of me. I knew it was this chilly, sandy wind which had disturbed the camel, and was about to lead him to a place of better shelter, or when I chanced to glance up and saw that there was no wind atop the cliff. This astonished me and made me fearful again. Dry. Water. This astonished me and made me fearful again, when I immediately recalled the sudden local winds I had seen and heard before at sunrise and sunset, and judged it was a normal thing. I decided that it came from some rock fissure leading into a cave, and watched the troubled sand to trace it to its source, soon perceiving that it came from the black orifice of a temple long distance south of me. Almost out of sight, against the choking sand cloud, I plodded towards this temple, which as I neared it loomed larger than the rest, and showed a doorway far less clogged with caked sand. I would have entered had not the terrific force of the icy wind almost quenched my torch. It poured madly out of the dark door, sighing uncannily as it ruffled the sand and spread about the weird ruins. Soon it grew fainter. Oh, hi, Laura, welcome in. Soon it grew fainter, and the sand grew more and more still, till finally all was at rest again, but a presence seemed stalking among the spectral stones of the city, and when I glanced at the moon it seemed to quiver as though mirrored in unquiet waters. I was more afraid than I can explain, but not enough to dull my thirst for wonder. So as soon as the wind was quite gone, I crossed into the dark chamber, which it had come. While Allura is here, I'm gonna shout out. Help give this awesome VTuber help this awesome VTuber reach affiliate. One. 8 pages. Okay. Going for almost an hour. I think we're gonna read this one, maybe a shorter one, like I think Nyarlathotep is short, and then we will read Call of Cthulhu and call it. The games where I read a lot, like it. I don't know why, but like reading aloud tends to take a bit out of me, so I want to keep this bit shorter. But yeah, I hope everyone's enjoying this. This temple as ample. Fucking god, English is not. Uh, I don't even know what my first language is anymore because I just said temple instead of temple. As I had fancied from the outside, was larger than either of those I had visited before. It was presumably a natural cavern, since it bore winds from some region beyond. Here I could stand quite upright, but saw that the stones and altars were as low as those in the other temples. On the walls and the roof, I beheld for the first time some traces of the pictorial art of the ancient race, curious curling stakes of paint that had almost faded or crumbled away, and on two of the altars I saw with rising excitement a maze of well-fashioned cur- curvilinear carvings. As I held my torch aloft, it seemed to me that the shape of the roof was too regular to be natural, and I wondered at what the prehistoric cutters of stone had first worked upon. Their engineering skill must have been vast. There, a brighter flare of fantastic flame showed. I hate how they spelled show in this. I hate it. It keeps fucking with me. I keep wanting to say shoe because of how it's spelled. Then a brighter flame of the fantastic, brighter flare of the fantastic flame showed me that for which I had been seeking, the open, the opening to those remoter abysses whence the sudden wind had blown, and I grew faint when I saw that it was a small and plainly artificial door chiseled in the solid rock. I thrust my torch within, beholding a black tunnel with the roof arching low over a rough flight of very small, numerous, and steeply descending steps. I shall always see those steps in my dream, for I came to learn what they meant. At the time, I hardly knew whether to call them steps or mere footholds in a precipitous descent. My mind was whirling with mad thoughts, and the words and warnings of Arab prophets seemed to float across the desert, from the lands that men know to the nameless city that men dare not know. Yet I hesitated only a moment before advancing through the portal and commencing to climb incautiously down the steep passage, feet first, as though on a ladder. Only in the terrible phantasms of drugs or delirium that any other man can have had such a descent as mine. The narrow passage led indefinitely down on like some hideous haunted well. The torch I held above my head could not light the unknown depths toward which I was crawling. I lost track of the hours and forgot to consult my watch, though I was frightened when I thought of the distance I must be traversing. There were changes of direction and steepness, and once I came into a long, low-level passage where I had to wriggle feet first along the rocky floor, holding my torch at arm's length up beyond my head. The place was not high enough for kneeling. After that, for more of the steep steps, and I was still scrambling down interminably when my failing torch died out. I do not think I noticed it at the time, for when I did notice it, I was still holding it high above of me as if it were ablaze. I was quite unbalanced with that instinct for the strange and the unknown which has made me a wanderer upon earth and a haunter of far, ancient, forbidden places. In the darkness there flashed before my mind fragments of my cherished treasury of demonic lore, sentences from Alzred, Alhazred the Mad Arab, paragraphs from the apocryphal nightmares of Damascus, and infamous lines from the delirious Image du Monde of Gautier de Metz. I repeated queer extracts and muttered of Afrasiab and demons that floated with him down the Oxus, later chanting over and over again, and a phrase from one of Lord Dunsany's tales, the unreverberate blackness of the abyss. Once when the descent grew amazingly steep, I recited something in sing-song from Thomas Moore, till I feared to recite more. A reservoir of darkness, black as witches' cauldrons are, when filled with moon drugs in the eclipse distilled, leaning to look if foot might pass, down through that chasm I saw beneath, as far as vision could explore, the jetty sides of glass, looking as if just varnished door. I don't know how pitch death rose out on its slimy shore. Time had quite ceased to exist when my feet again felt a level floor, and I found a temple. I found myself in a place slightly higher than the smaller temples, now so incalculably far above my head. I could not quite stand, but could kneel upright, and in the dark I shuffled and crept hither and thither at random. I soon knew that I was in a narrow passage whose walls were lined with cases of wood having glass fronts. As in that Paleozoic and abysmal place I felt of such things as polished wood and glass, shuddered at the possible implications. Cases the cases were apparently ranged along each side of the passage at regular intervals, and were oblong and horizontal, hideously like coffins in shape and size. I tried to move two or three for further examination. I found they were firmly fastened. I saw that the passage was a long one, so floundered ahead rapidly in a creeping run that it would have seemed horrible that had any eye watched me in the blackness, crossing from side to side occasionally to feel of my surroundings, and be sure that the walls and rows of cases still stretched on. Man is so used to thinking visually that I almost forgot the darkness and pictured the endless corridor of wooden glass and its low-studded monotony as though I saw it. And then, in a moment of indescribable emotion, I did see. Just when my fancy emerged into real sight, I cannot tell, there came a gradual glow ahead. All at once I knew that I saw the dim outlines of the corridor and the cases, revealed by some unknown subterranean phosphorescence. For a little while, all was exactly as I had imagined it, since the glow was very faint. But as I mechanically kept on stumbling ahead into the stronger light, I realized that my fancy had been but feeble. The hall was no relic of crudity like the temples in the city above, but a monument of the most magnificent and exotic art. Rich, vivid, daringly fantastic designs and pictures formed a continuous scheme of mural painting, whose lines and colors were beyond description. The cases were a strange. Fuck. I swear to God, if my phone does not stop going off, I'm gonna have an aneurysm. For a little while, all was exactly as I had imagined it, since the glow was very faint. But as I mechanically kept on stumbling ahead into the stronger light, I realized that my fancy had been but feeble. This hall was no relic of crudity like the temples in the city above, but a monument of the most magnificent and exotic art. Rich, vivid, and daringly fantastic designs and pictures from the continuous scheme of mural paintings whose lines and colors were beyond description. The cases were of a strange golden wood, with fronts of exquisite glass, and contained the mummified forms of creatures outreaching in grotesqueness of the most chaotic dreams of man. Drink water. To convey any idea of these monstrosities is impossible. They were of the reptile kind, with body linings suggesting something, sometimes the crocodile, sometimes the seal, but more often noting nothing of which either the naturalist or the paleontologist ever heard. In size, they approximated a small man. Their forelegs bore delicate, evidently flexible feet, curiously like human hands and fingers. But strangest of all were their heads, which presented a contour violating all known biological principles. Nothing can such things be well compared. In one flash I thought of comparisons as varied as the cat, the bulldog, the mythic satyr, the human being. Not Jove himself had so colossal and protuberant a forehead, yet the horns and the noselessness and the agitator-like jaw placed all things outside the established category. I debated for a time on the reality of the mummies, half suspecting they were artificial idols, soon decided they were indeed of some what? Paleogean species which had lived when the nameless city was alive. To crown their grotesqueness, most of them were gorgeously enrobed in the costliest of fabrics, and lavishly laden with ornaments of gold, jewels, and unknown shining pearls. Unknown shining metals. Not pearls, sorry. Thank you, Janine, for the hydrate. I don't think I have sound alerts on this page, so I don't think it's going to go off, but still, thank you very much. Always remember to hydrate. I ended up dehydrated one time in my life, and I ended up dehydrated once, and it sucked. So good. Yeah, it sucked. Very story. My God, the very sight of this extra large meat still exists in the Triforals to madness. Yo, guys, imagine fucking the Papa John's is just an eldritch abomination created by H.P. Lovecraft. All right. The importance of these crawling creatures must have been vast, for they held first place among the wild designs on the frescoed walls and ceiling. With matchless skill had the artists drawn them in a world of their own, wherein they had cities and gardens fashioned to suit their dimensions, and I could not but think that their pictured history was allegorical, perhaps showing the progress of the race that had worshipped them. These creatures, I said to myself, were to the men of the nameless city what the she-wolf was to Rome, or some totem beast is to a tribe of Indians. Great idea for stream. Also, hi Faye, welcome. Holding this view, I thought I could trace roughly a wonderful epic of the nameless city, the tale of a mighty seacoast metropolis that ruled the world before Africa rose out of the wave, and of its struggles as the sea shrank away, as and the desert crept into the fertile valley that held it. I saw its wars and triumphs, its troubles and defeats, and afterwards its terrible fight against the desert when thousands of its people here here represented in allegory by the grotesque reptiles, were driven to chisel their way down through the rocks in some marvelous manner to another world whereof their prophets had told them. It was all vividly weird and realistic, and I think I made a horrible choice choosing to read books by a man that died in the fucking 50s. Did this man die? No, never mind. I was way off. He died in the 1930s. There are so many words in here that are spelled weird that are just actually confusing me. That makes sense. Yeah, no, I'm trying to refine what it was because I actually just quit for a second there. Holding this view, I thought I could trace roughly a wonderful epic of the nameless city, the tale of a mighty seacoast metropolis that ruled the world before Africa rose out of the waves, and of its struggles as the sea shrank away, the desert crept in the fertile valley that held it. I saw its wars and triumphs, its troubles and defeats. Okay, no, I already read it. So vividly weird and realistic. Is that supposed to be connection? Can I kill someone? Languages change a surprising amount over the years. Yeah, it's not even like weird words. It's things like this he keeps using, except it's pronounced not. I keep thinking to pronounce it like shoe, but it's pronounced like show. And then I just see this, and then apparently that's supposed to say connection. I Words hurt my head. Why did I choose a reading stream? Will this be a VOD upload? I will probably upload it if you guys want me to. I can upload it to my YouTube. Old English is weird. This doesn't mean Old English. This guy died in like almost the 1940s. Please, I was sleeping. Been a bad day, so I missed it all. Could it be intentionally misspelled? No, looking it up, connection is supposed to be spelled like that, and it's like an old British way of spelling it. Faye, what the fuck? Explain yourself. Might have been a good idea to see what you're getting into first. Yeah, I've made many mistakes, but I've been so busy with a bunch of other things that I just kind of slipped my mind, and I like read Dagon before this stream. But also, Faye, explanation, yes. Okay. Yeah, Chad, I do want to say on a better note, this Friday is the horror short day. And also, like, 2 collabs because my scheduling is horrid. Mothman, welcome in, Clover. Yeah, I will just like set it in stone now. Once this stream is over, I will. In all sincerity, I love this idea. Thank you. I'll probably do more reading streams in the future. Just that it feels like this stream just had a slow startup, but it feels like it's going well now. Okay, my phone is going to now be thrown across the fucking room because I just saw it so Typhlosion. Goodbye, phone. I'm not looking at Twitter for the rest of the goddamn day. Alright, we got an ad break coming in 10 seconds, and once that, we're gonna let that run, but once that is finished, I will be back to reading this. So what? Never checked the For You page ever. Oh no, this was someone that I follow tweeting this. Olivia, are you here? I don't know if you have a sub or not. Horror Disney. Chat, should I do that? Hold on, let me put up a poll. Should I read like creepypastas and horror Disney? How do I do that on Streamlabs? I don't know if Olivia knows how to do it. Okay. Okay, so long story short, I'll explain this while the ad break is running. Long story short, what happened was that a terabyte worth of stuff got leaked from Game Freak, who is the main company that works with Nintendo to make Pokemon. And if you don't know how big a terabyte is, for reference, my PC storage is about 32 gigabytes. How many gigabytes are in a terabyte? So 1,000 gigabytes makes 1 terabyte. That's how much that is. Part of this was some Greek mythology level fucked stories about Pokemon. They're not canon because they were never officially published, but at the same time, they are fucked. Um, take that whole meme about Vaporeon and then mix it with the fact that in a game they outright state that uh they outright state that it used to be legal to marry your Pokemon. That's how bad it is. One of them was a woman being Zeused by a Slacking. Come again. So you know how Zeus did a lot of horrid things to women and animals? Yeah, take a Slacking from Pokemon, have it do that to a woman. That is one of the stories. Yes, Clover. That's at least what's implied. I don't know if it's directly said because I mostly skimmed it. But then it got even worse because they were apparently torturing and killing Slackoths for fun. And then this one was the one that she had was being raised as her own child because it technically was her child. And then it got killed. I'm glad that these were never published, but now what the tree apparently houses. I don't even want to know. But no, the thing is, Typhlosion was a main focus with one of them, and now people are turning Typhlosion into the Vaporeon meme, and I want to kill someone. 5-minute poll, allow additional votes. Alright, I am allowing additional votes for 250 points. Alright, I think everyone's back from the ads, so let's get back into this. I never like that copy pasta. People act like the whole Pokemon is ruined. I don't think the Pokemon itself is ruined. I just despise how people do that. And when I first added text to speech to my streams, someone immediately redeemed that, and I actually had to scream over it and say, if anyone does that again, I am banning them. Ask what book are we reading? We are reading a collection of stories from H.P. Lovecraft. And before anyone in chat says it, I understand this man is horrid, but he also died almost 100 years ago. It's not like this book that I bought from a small business is giving him money. It's almost all going towards the person that sold me the book. Right now, we're reading Nameless City. And if anyone wants to catch up on any stories they might have joined in, if anyone wants to hear any of these stories that I was reading that you either joined in the middle of or that you missed entirely, this VOD will be going up on my YouTube, which you can find through my card link over on my Twitter, and it will be added to my Twitch soon. Getting back into it. As I crept along the corridor, the brighter lights I saw later stages of Nameless City. As I crept along the corridor toward the brighter light, I saw later stages of the painted epic, the leave taking of the race that had dwelt in the Nameless City and the valley around for 10 million years, the race whose souls shrank from the quitting scenes in their bodies had known for so long, where they had settled as nomads in the earth's viewing in the virgin rock whose primal shrines at which they never ceased to worship. Now that the light was better, I studied the pictures more closely. Shut the fuck up, dehumidifier! Lost my spot. Pondered upon the customs in the Nameless City. Many things were peculiar and inexplicable. The civilization, which included a written alphabet, had seemingly risen to a higher order than those immeasurably later civilizations of Egypt and Chaldea. Yet there were curious omissions. I could, for example, find no pictures to represent deaths or funeral customs, such as were related to wars, violence, and plagues. And I wondered at the reticence shown concerning natural death. It was as though an ideal of earthly immortality had been fostered as a cheering illusion. Still, near the end of the passage were painted scenes of the utmost pis- bleh, picture, ah, picturesqueness and extravagance. Contrasted views in the nameless city in its desertion and growing ruin, and of the strange new realm or paradise to which the race had hewed its way through the stone. In these views, the city and the desert valley were shown always by moonlight, a golden nimbus hovering over the fallen walls and half revealing the splendid perfection of former times. Shown spectrally and elusively by the artist, the paradisal scenes were almost too extravagant to be believed, portraying a hidden world in eternal day, filled with glorious cities and ethereal hills and valleys. At the very last thought, I saw signs of an artistic anticlimax. The paintings were less skillful and much more bizarre than even the wildest of the earlier scenes. They seemed to record a slow decadence of the ancient stock, coupled with a growing ferocity toward the outside world from which it was driven by desert. The forms of the people, always represented by the sacred reptiles, appeared to be gradually wasting away, though their spirit, as shown hovering about the ruins by moonlight, gained in proportion. Emaciated priests, displayed as reptiles in ornate robes, cursed the upper air and all who had breathed it, and one terrible final scene showed a primitive looking man, perhaps a pioneer of ancient Irem, the city of pillars, torn to pieces by members of the elder race. I remembered how the Arabs fear the nameless city. Oh, we got a sweeping? Yes, okay. And was glad that beyond this gray place, the gray walls and ceilings were bare. As I viewed the pageant of mural history, I had approached very closely the end of the low-ceiled hall, and was aware of the great gate through which came all of the illuminated phosphorescence. Creeping up to it, I cried aloud in transcendent amazement of what lay beyond. For instead of other and brighter chambers, there was only an eh? illimitable void of uniform radiance, such as one might fancy when gazing down from the peak of Mount Everest upon a sea of sunlit mist. Behind me was a passage so cramped that I could not stand upright in it. Before me was an infinity of subterranean effulgence. Reaching down from the passage into the abyss was the head of a steep flight of steps, small, numerous steps like those of the black passages I had traversed, but after a few feet of the glowing vapors sealed everything. Swung back open against the left-hand wall of the passage was a massive door of brass, incredibly thick and decorated with fantastic bas-reliefs, which could, if closed shut, the whole inner world of light away from the vaults and passages of rock. I looked at the steps, and for the non-stared, or did not try them. I touched the open brass door and could not move it. Then I sank prone to the stone floor, my mind aflame with prodigious reflections which not even in a death-like exhaustion could banish. As I lay still with closed eyes, free to ponder, many things I had lightly noted in the frescoes came back to me with new and terrible significance. Scenes representing the nameless city in its heyday, the vegetation of the valley around it, distant lands with which its merchants traded. The allegory of the crawling creatures puzzled me by its universal prominence, and I wondered that it should be so closely followed in a pictured history of such importance. In the frescoes of the nameless city had been shown in proportions fitted to the reptiles. I wondered what its real proportions and magnificence had been, and reflected a moment on certain oddities noted in the ruins. Ruins. Fuck. Thought curiously of the lowness of the primal temples and of the underground corridor, which were doubtless hewn and thus out of the deference of the reptile deities is there honored, though it perforce reduced the worshippers to crawling. Again, everyone remember to hydrate. Perhaps the very rites had involved a crawling in imitation of the creatures. No religious theory, however, could easily explain why the level passage in that awesome descent should be as low as the temples, or lower, since one could not even kneel in it. I thought of the crawling creatures whose hideous mummified forms were so close to me. I felt a new throb of fear. Mental associations are curious, and I shrank from the idea that except for the poor primitive man torn to pieces in the last painting, mine was the only human form amidst the many relics, symbols of primordial life. But as always in my strange, roving existence, wonder soon drove out of fear, for the luminous abyss and what it might contain presented a problem worthy of the greatest explorer. That a weird world of mystery lay far down on that flight of peculiarities, peculi- ah! peculiarly small steps I had not doubt, and I hoped to find there those human memorials which the painted corridor had failed to give. The frescoes had pictured unbelievable cities, hills, and valleys in this lower realm, and my fancy dwelt on the rich and colossal ruins that awaited me. Associations are curious indeed. Yes. Yeah, depending on how I'm feeling, I might just flip to a game or something, but I'll probably just upload this pod. I'll have to think about it. My fears indeed concern the past rather than the future. Not even the physical horror of my position in that cramped corridor of dead reptiles and antediluvian frescoes, miles below the world I knew and faced by another antiquity of the scene in its soul, and an ancientness so vast that the measurement is feeble seemed clear down the primal stones in the rock-hewn temples in the nameless city, while the very latest of the astounding maps in the frescoes showed oceans and continents that man has forgotten, only here and there some vaguely familiar outline of what could have happened in the geological eons since the painting ceased and the death-hating race resentfully succumbed to decay. No man might say. Life had once teemed in these caverns, the luminous realm beyond. Now I was alone with vivid relics, and I trembled to think of the countless ages through which these relics had kept a silent and deserted vigil. Fuck. Suddenly there came another burst of that acute fear which had intermittently seized me ever since I first saw the terrible valley and the city under a cold moon. Despite my exhaustion, I found myself starting to frantically to a sitting posture and gazing back along the black corridor toward the tunnels that rose to the outer world. My sensations were much like those which had made me shun the city at night, and were as inexplicable as they were poignant. In another moment, however, I received a still greater shock in the form of a definite sound, the first which had broken the utter silence of the tomb-like depths. It was a deep, low moaning, as of a distant throng of condemned spirits. It came from a direction in which I was staring. Its volume rapidly grew, till soon it reverberated it frightfully in through the low passage. And at the same time I became conscious of an increasing draught of cold air, likewise flowing from the tunnels in the city above. The touch of this air seemed to restore my balance, for I instantly recalled the sudden gusts this air, or the sudden gusts which had risen from around the mouth of the abyss, each sunset and sunrise, one of which had indeed served to reveal the hidden tunnels to me. I looked at my watch and saw that sunrise was near, so I braced myself to resist the gale which was sweeping down to its cavern home as it had swept forth at evening. My fear again waned low, since the natural phenomenon tends to dispel broodings over the unknown. More and more madly, I poured the shrieking, moaning night wind into that gulf of the inner earth. I dropped prone again and clutched vainly at the floor for the fear of being swept bodily through the open gate into the phosphorescent abyss. Such fury I had not expected, and as I grew aware of an actual slipping of my form toward the abyss, I was beset by 1,000 new terrors of apprehension and imagination. The malignancy of the blast awakens incredible fancies. Once more I compared myself to shudderingly to the only other human image in that frightful corridor, the man who was torn to pieces by the nameless race, for in the fiendish clawing of the swirling currents there seemed to abide a vindictive rage, all the stronger because it was largely impotent. I think I screamed frantically near the last. I was almost mad. But if I did so, my cries were lost in the hellborn babble of the howling wind and wraiths. I tried to crawl against the murderous invisible torrent, but I could not even hold my own as I was pushed slowly and inexorably toward the unknown world. Finally, reason must have wholly snapped, for I fell to babbling over and over that unexplainable couplet of the mad that Al has read, who dreamed of the nameless city, that is not dead, which can eternal lie. Strange eons, in death may die. Only the grim, brooding desert gods know what really took place, what indescribable struggles and scrambles in the dark I endured, what Abaddon and guided me back to life, where I must always remember and shiver in the night winds till oblivion, or worse, claims me. Monstrous, unnatural, colossal was that thing, too far beyond all the ideas of man to be believed, except in the silent, damnable hours when one cannot sleep. I have said that the fury of the rushing blast was infernal, cacodemoniacal, fuck, and that its voices were hideous with the pent-up viciousness of desolate eternities. Presently, those voices, while still chaotic before me, seemed to my beating brain to take articulate form behind me. And down there in the grave of unnumbered eon-dead antiquities, leagues below the dawn-lit world of men, I had heard the ghastly cursing and snarling of strange-tongued fiends. Turning, I saw outlined the luminous ether of the abyss, what could not be seen, the dusk of the corridor, a nightmare horde of rushing devils, hate-distorted, grotesquely panoplied, half-transparent, devils of a race no man might mistake, the crawling reptiles of the nameless city. And as the wind died away, I was plunged into the ghoul-peopled blackness of Earth's bowels, for behind the last of the creatures, the great brazen door clanged shut with a deafening peal of metallic music. Reverberations swelled out to the distant world to hail the rising sun, as Memnon hails it from the banks of the Nile. That was Story of the Nameless City. The chat, what do you think of that one? How am I doing? I've never done anything like this. I think we'll do one more short. There's one I heard about. Stay with the popcorn. You're doing great. Thank you. Hydrates fix. Blue the clapping. Thank you for the hydrate, Juniper. Yeah, well, I'm kind of like just catching my breath because I did like I did just kind of go ham with that towards the end, like just trying to like get all the energy I could build up. So let's talk about that. What is this about to become a good mythical morning thing? thing like eldritch gods in the desert. Let's talk about that. I want to make sure I understood the imagery. That the dismembered man was a very reoccurring thing. There are a number of reoccurring stories throughout these. One of these that I was reading, I was wondering if all of these are in the same continuity, if that makes sense. Like wondering if they're all tied to the same thing, because it felt like it kind of mentioned Dagon, like that slimy like surface where they worship. That sounded like Dagon, where it's like these strange iterations of like these fish like men worshiping a monolith. And the victim in that story was saying that he found land on this strange like slimy rotting mud kind of island. Main character underground in the ruins of an ancient city. He was describing. You actually see the reptilian people at the end. I believe that's what's implied. Yes, but it's kind of hard to say for 100% certainty because that's what I'm assuming is what he saw. They could still be in there, but part of the problem is that like part of the point of Lovecraft's stories is that he wasn't go as far as I know, he wasn't really going for world building. He was going for horror of these indescribable monsters because from what I understand, part of why Lovecraft created cosmic horror, because if you don't know, he's where like eldritch slash cosmic horror came from for the most part. Part of it came from the fact that his father had died from syphilis, which, if untreated, one of the diseases is madness, and like this stuff that like is described as like this sort of breakout into madness, and with how he was being treated and like these acts of like delirium, it looked as if he'd just suddenly go mad. It looked as if his father just suddenly gone mad, and then his mother suffered the same fate, and so he thought that just his mom got it, his dad got it, and they didn't really know how to treat it, and the medical treatment at that time was very bad. And so he was just scared for most of his life, thinking he was next, that he was going to suffer this madness. And so that's kind of like part of where he got the idea of writing Cosmic Horror, like how insignificant his life was in the vast universe because trauma. Yes, absolutely. It does not justify anything that he did. He was a wildly racist man. I hold this man in little to no praise because he was so like belligerently racist. Like, look up his cat's name just for an example. Don't say it in chat. Uh, but no, like, his writing is like very well shown of like one how influential it is because cosmic horror is a very like common horror now because of just how interesting it is. But he was basically just driven by a few different fears, including he hated the ocean. He despised seafood. That's why so many of the creatures that he writes about are like fish-like or ocean themed. Like Cthulhu is because he fucking hates like seafood. It disgusted him. Here, let me pull it up. Is who wait, let me grab. With Lovecraft, I don't know what is being this if what is being described is really happening, or if the flowery language is describing normal everyday stuff, but doing it in a way that makes it scary. Either one could be the case, and it's hard to know when it is or is not something that's actually happening to them, or it's this fit of madness that is hitting them. Because again, that is part of the point of his writing with cosmic horror. It's like these bursts of madness. This like you're seeing things that your mind cannot comprehend, so you are literally going mad. In the first story, the man was trying like was in an American hospital being treated with I think it was morphine, and he had become addicted to it, and because he couldn't handle the madness of what he saw and being a slave to this drug, he decided that he was going to kill himself by jumping out a window because he refused to be taken by that madness of what he had seen. Uh okay, found it. So related to like the fish thing. So quoting Google is cooked, the automatic AI overview said he never had a cat, but everything else says otherwise. He did have a cat. What the fuck? No, hold on. It only shows up on my phone, so I need to actually go grab my phone that I just threw. Hold on. Hold on. Okay, got my phone. Fucking Google. I want to be of craft cat, not car, cat. Oh my god. AI is untrustworthy? Oh, absolutely. No, sometimes I will listen to the AI overviews just because it's willing to actually shave down something that it's willing to like actually give me a straight answer. But it's only with stuff like a video game that I will trust it. It's like, okay, how do I do this? Like, what's the score I need for this? And then the AI overview gives it to me, and because that information is incredibly consistent, I actually trust the overview, and that is the only time that I do. Giving out wrong information as almost always. Yes. Let me remind you guys, if anyone is for some reason questioning like oh, I think that the AI overview is good, it can't be wrong that many times. Someone said that they're depressed and searched for results on Google, and then it suggested from like a meme Reddit post, I think, that they should go jump off the Golden Gate Bridge. According to AI, Hornet from Hollow Knight is a seductress. What the fuck? Hi, MP. Welcome in. Oh my god, that actually just killed me. Okay, before we, okay, ad break. Ad is incoming. I snoozed the ads, but okay, I want to say ads are incoming in 5 minutes. I'm gonna start a story in the meantime. We will pause when the ads are begin, and I will catch up on chat and everything. Like get some water in me. But I do want to say, so related to all of the like fish and ocean themes in Lovecraft's writing, this is part of it. He, in a letter to the author Donald Landry, I'm probably saying that wrong. He said, "quote I have hated fish and fear the sea and everything connected with it since I was 2 years old." And he was apparently even disgusted by the sight of seafood or like the smell of fish. Oh, we don't have fishing up. Wait, hold on. Yeah, fuck it. Uh, Here, guys, which one do you want more? The maybe I should just stick with this, just because like we have throw on, which I'm surprised nobody's redeemed. You know what? Here, I'll be nice. MP, give me one moment. Also, MP, you're still in the lead, by the way. I was being respectful for the reading. That's understandable. Let me pull up this board. Yeah, MP, you're still in the lead by a wide margin. Am I still in last? No. You wanted to be in the last place, Judy? I've never done the fishing. Exclamation mark fish. Like that. Got a 5. Yeah, they did it one time and that was it. Okay, so you guys can do that. This is... Oh my god, this is some Subway Surfer shit, because I'm reading a book and you guys are playing a game. Okay. Just took a drink. I want to go for a shorter story because I don't know if I want to read all of Lovecraft, because that's one of his longest stories. Well, not all of Lovecraft, all of Cthulhu, because the Cthulhu story is around 30 pages, and I don't know if I want to read that much. A fishing minigame. Lovecraft would be having a panic attack right now. Just a reminder, chat. By the end of October, whoever has the highest score on the leaderboard will be given the first VIP badge. Right now, MP is in the lead by a wide margin. And also keep in mind that there are custom fishes that you can catch up, including me, Green Man, and Lynn. Trying to decide what I want to read. There's a more funny one. Not really funny in like a comedic way, more just like learning what's actually happening in it. Do you guys want something from the book, or do you want me to try finding that one? Okay, we got ads incoming in 1 minute. I'll use this as a time to decide what we should read. Should I read something out of my book, or should I, because Lovecraft is public domain, should I just pull up online the one that technically has a more comedic theme? Again, it's not really like comedy, like cracking jokes. It's more just people have been able to laugh about it when it sinks in what's happening. We can put it to a poll if you guys want. Yeah, here's what I'll do. Let me find a shorter one in here. Yeah, no, here. I'll just pull up the one. He's always good. Okay. Okay, so this one is. I just had to pull this up online. So this book is called The Alchemist. I love how half of chat is just fish now. I want to be clear. I'm not upset about this. This is just funny. MP, are you proud of yourself? Also, MP, you get the shout out. Dad, if you're gonna go watch a very beautiful trans lady, here you go. Yes, I called you beautiful, MP. That's because you are, bitch. All right, ads are incoming. Ads are happening for a minute 30. We will wait to start. Ads for a minute. We'll start once they're over. Just for anybody that cannot hear me right now because the ads are happening. Damn, I love the comeback there. Yes. Yeah, I just want to just check in. How's everyone doing? How's everybody feeling? Because it's been more of a chill day. I've enjoyed this. I think this is fun. Like I was saying before, kind of a slow startup, but that's also not a new thing for my streams. Good job, Faye, fishing up an epic rarity fish. I want to sleep forever. What? Then you would. Then I would miss you. Period cramps are being horrible, and I want to die. Jack, can we get some pats for him for I was about to say MP. Can we just get some chats for Pat? What? Can we get some pats, just some head pats for everyone in chat? Just especially Olivia because she's suffering that time of the month. All right, and we are back from the ads. I wonder if anyone ever gave Lovecraft a wedgie. Stop being scared of everything, you nerd. Oh god, that would be fun. My family such sucks, and I was slept majority of the day because I'd be so drained. I just sleeps. Okay. The only head pad I see is this one. Well, we don't have. I don't have a head pad redeem yet. I just had to sink like half of my money that I had saved for a PC upgrade, and so I can't really afford to go get. I can't really afford to do like emotes or anything right now. You have long ears or you're a rabbit boy? No, I am a moth. I am the moth. These are like the asset in Vroid, which is what was used to make my model, was made using rabbit ears because we don't have easy access to it. Those are not working. I genuinely hope that you feel better soon, Olivia. That does not sound good. But all right, we're going into the story now. I will be paying attention in the chat though. This story is called The Alchemist. High up, crowning the grassy summit of a swelling mound whose sides are wooded near the base and with the gnarled trees of the primeval forest, stands the old chateau of my ancestors. For centuries, its lofty battlements have down upon the wild and rugged countryside about, serving as a home and stronghold for the proud house whose honored line is older than even the moss-grown castle walls. These ancient turrets, stained by the storms of generations and crumbling under the slow yet mighty pressure of time, formed in the ages of feudalism one of the most dreaded and formidable fortresses in all France. I crack my hand. There we go. From its achicolated parapets, probably pronounced, and mounted battlements, and barons, counts, and even kings had been defied. Yet never had its spacious halls resounded to the footsteps of the invader. What? What I said? Oh, you fished up a scooter. Yeah, all the junk is like low rank. So, oh, I forgot Alex had me add that one. Alex had me add that. That's a wrestler he's a fan of. Yet never had its spacious halls resounded to the footsteps of the invader. Yes, Cody wrote. He's a great guy, by the way. But since those glorious years, all is changed. A poverty but little above the level of dire want, together with a pride of name that it forbids its alleviation by the pursuits of commercial life, have prevented the scions of our line from maintaining their estates in pristine splendor, the, and the failing and the falling stones of the walls, the overgrown vegetation in the parks, the dry and dusty moats, the ill-paved courtyards, the toppling towers without, as well as the sagging floors, the worm-eaten wainscots, and the faded tapestries within, all tell a gloomy tale of fallen grandeur. As the ages passed, first one, first one, then another, of the four great turrets were left to ruin, until at last but a single tower housed the sadly reduced descendants of the once mighty lords of the estate. It was in one of the vast and gloomy chambers of this remaining tower that I, Antoine, last of the unhappy and accursed Comtesse de C. Is it supposed to be cut off? I'm gonna run away now. I'll watch VOD when it's up. Love you guys. Bye. I hope you feel better soon, Faye. I'm assuming that because you're sick, that's why you've only been stopping in for a bit. Sick, or it's time to feeling tired from family. I hope you feel better soon. Get some sleep if you need it. Get yourself some sleep. Spoil yourself a bit. Buy yourself a snack. First saw the light of day 90 long years ago. Within these walls and amongst the dark and shadowy forests, the wild ravines and grottos of the hillside below, where the first was bleh, were first goddamn it, were spent the first years of my troubled life. My parents I never knew. My father had been killed at the age of 32, a month before I was born, by the fall of a stone somehow dislodged from one of the deserted parapets of the castle. My mother having died at my birth, my care and education devolved solely upon one remaining servitor, an old and trusted man of considerable intelligence. His name I remember as Pierre. I was an only child, and the lack of companionship which this fact entailed upon me was augmented by the strange care exercised by my aged guardian, excluding me from the society of the peasant children whose abodes were scattered here and there upon the plains, surrounded the base of the hill. Fishing was fun. Yeah, you can keep doing it if you want. At the time, Pierre said that this restriction was imposed upon me because my noble birth placed me above association with such plebeian. Why is that word funny to me? Such plebeian company. Now I know that its real object was to I keep from my ears the idle tales of the dread curse upon our line, were nightly told and magnified by the simple tenantry. They conversed in the hushed accents in the glow of their cottage hearths. Plebeian? Yes, it's like peasant. I got a doc. Yes, it's Xander's made that. I'm pausing this for a second so I can say it. Um, so Xander made that and sent it to me, and it's supposed to be me dead, but because I am canonically immortal, we were like, how does that work? And so now the joke is that I am just shit faced drunk and someone threw me in the lake and then just they caught me that way. Oh, you had a three exclamation. That's a good one. Oh god damn it. Okay, back to it. Thus isolated and thrown upon my own resources, I spent the hours of my childhood in poring over the ancient tomes that filled the shadow-haunted library of the chateau, and in roaming without aim or purpose through the perpetual dusk of the spectral wood that clothes the side of the hill near the foot. It was perhaps an effect of such surroundings that my mind early acquired a shade of melancholy. Those studies and pursuits which partake of the dark and occult in nature most strongly claimed my attention. Of my own race, I was permitted to learn singularly little, yet what small knowledge of it I was able to gain seemed to depress me much. Perhaps it was at first only the manifest as reluctance of my old preceptor to discuss with me my paternal ancestry that gave rise to the terror which I ever felt at the mention of my great house. Yet as I grew out of childhood, I was able to piece together disconnected fragments of discourse. Let's slip from the unwilling tongue which I had begun to falter in approaching senility that had a sort of relation to to a certain circumstance, which I had always deemed strange, but which now became dimly terrible. Circumstance to which I allude early age at which all the comtes of my line had met their end, whilst I had to hitherto whilst I had hitherto considered this but a natural attribute of a family of short-lived men. I afterward pondered long upon these premature deaths, and began to connect them with the wanderings of the old man, who spoke of a curse which for centuries had prevented the lives of the holders of my title from much exceeding the span of 32 years. Upon my 21st birthday, the HBR gave to me a family document which he said had for many generations been handed from father to son, continued continued by each possessor. Its contents were of the most startling nature, and its perusal confirmed the gravest of my apprehensions. At this time, my belief in the supernatural was firm and deep-seated, else I should have dismissed with scorn the incredible narrative unfolded before my eyes. This paper carried me back to the days of the 13th century, when the old castle in which I sat had been a feared and impregnable fortress. It told of a certain ancient man who had once dwelt on our estates, a person of no small accomplishments, though little above the rank of a peasant, by name Michael. It's French. I don't fucking know. It looks like Michael. Usually designated by the surname of Mauvais, the evil, on account of his sinister reputation. Yeah, French isn't real. He had studied it beyond custom of his kind, seeking such things as the philosopher's stone or the elixir of eternal life, and was reputed wise in the terrible secrets of black magic and alchemy. Michael Mauvais had one son named Charles, a youth as proficient as himself in the hidden arts, and who had therefore been called Le Sorcier, or the Wizard. This pair, shunned by all honest folk, were suspected of the most hideous practices. Old Michael was said to have burnt his wife alive as a sacrifice to the devil, and the unaccountable disappearances of many small peasant children were laid at the dreaded door of these two. Yet through the dark natures of the father and son ran one redeeming ray of humanity. The evil old man loved his offspring with fierce intensity, whilst the youth had for his parent a more than filial affection. The fuck does filial mean? Son or daughter? Oh, okay. One night the castle on the hill was thrown into the wildest confusion by the vanishment of young Godfrey, son to Henry the Comte. Read the sentence again. Yet through the dark natures of the father and the son ran one redeeming ray of humanity. The evil old man loved his offspring with fierce intensity, whilst the youth had for his parent a more filial affection. I don't even know how to feel. Fuck that man's honestly. Wait, okay. Son to Henry the Comte. Searching party, headed by the frantic father, invaded the cottage of the sorcerers, and there came upon old Michael Mauvais, busy over a huge and violently boiling cauldron, without certain cause in the ungoverned madness of fury and despair. Comte laid hands on the aged wizard, and ere he released his murderous hold, his victim was no more. Yeah, that makes sense. Parents, school teachers can never teach French and test the answers written orators claim Yeah, that makes sense. At least his murderous hold his victim was no more. Meanwhile, joyful servants were proclaiming the finding of young Godfrey in a distant and unused chamber of the great edifice, telling too late that poor had been killed in vain. Comte and his associates turned away from the lowly abode of the alchemist. The form of Charles Le Sorcier had appeared through the trees. The excited chatter of the menials standing about told him and what had occurred. Yet he seemed at first unmoved at his father's fate. Then, slowly advancing to meet the Comte, he pronounced in dull yet terrible accents the curse that ever afterward haunted the house of C. May ne'er, may ne'er, fucking God, I hate this fucking wording. May ne'er a noble of thy murderous line survive to teach a greater age than thine. Spake he, when suddenly, leaping backwards into the black wood, he drew from his tunic a vial of a colorless liquid which he threw into the face of his father's slayer. As he disappeared behind the inky curtains of the night, the Comte without, died without utterance, and was buried the next day, a little more than 2 and 30 years from the hour of his birth. No trace of the assassin could be found, though relentless bands of peasants scoured the neighboring woods and the meadowland around the hill. Thus time and the want of a reminder dulled the memory of the curse in the minds of the late Comte's family, that when Godfrey, innocent cause of the whole innocent cause of the whole tragedy, and now bearing the title, was killed by an arrow whilst hunting at the age of 32. There were no thoughts save those of grief at his demise. But when years afterwards, oh, but when years afterward, the next young Comte, Robert by name, was found dead in a nearby field from no apparent cause, the peasants told in whispers that their seigneur had but lately passed his 32nd birthday when surprised by an early death. Louis, son to Robert, was found drowned in the moat at the same fateful age, and thus down through the centuries ran the ominous chronicle. Henris, Roberts, Antoine, and Armand, snatched from happy and virtuous lives when little below the age of their unfortunate ancestor at his murder. That I had left at most but 11 years of further existence was made to me was made certain to me by the words which I read. My life, previously held at small value, it now became dearer to me each day, as I delved deeper and deeper into the mysteries of the hidden world of black magic. Isolated as I was, modern science has produced no impression upon me, and I labored as in the Middle Ages, as wrapped as had been old Michael and young Charles themselves in the acquisition of the demonological and alchemical learning. Yet read as I might, in no manner could I account for the strange curse upon my line. In usually rational moments, I would even go so far as to seek a natural explanation, attributing the early deaths of my ancestors to sinister Charles Le Sorcier and his heirs. Yet, having found upon careful inquiry that there were no known descendants of the alchemist, I would fall I would fall back to occult studies and once more endeavor to find a spell that would release my house from its terrible burden. Upon one thing I was absolutely resolved. I should never wed, for since no other branches of my family were in existence, I might thus end the curse with myself. As I drew near the age of 30, old Pierre was called to the land beyond. Alone I buried him beneath the stones of the courtyard about which he had loved to wander in life. Thus I was left thus was I left to ponder on myself as the only human creature within the great fortress, and in my utter solitude my mind began to cease its vain protest against the impending doom, to become almost reconciled to the fate which so many of my ancestors had met. Much of my time was now occupied in the explanation of the ruined and abandoned halls and the towers of the old chateau, which in youth fear had caused me to shun, and some of which old Pierre had once told me had not been trodden in by human foot for over 4 centuries. Strange and awesome were many of the objects I encountered. Furniture covered by the dust of ages and crumbling with the rot of long dampness at my eyes. Cobwebs in a profusion never before seen by me were spun everywhere. Huge bats flapped their bony and uncanny wings on all sides of the otherwise un- untenanted gloom. I don't know why that broke my brain to read. Of my exact age, even down to days and hours, I kept a most careful record. For each movement of the pendulum of the massive clock in the library, it told off so much more of my doomed existence. At length I approached that time which I had so long viewed with apprehension, since most of my ancestors had been seized some little while before they had reached the exact age of Comte Henry at his end. I was every moment on the watch. I was every moment on the watch coming of the unknown death, for the coming of the unknown death. In what strange form first should overtake me, I knew not, but I was resolved, at least, that it should not find me a cowardly or a passive victim. With new vigor, I applied myself to my examination of the old chateau and its contents. It was one of the longest of all my excursions. It was upon one of the longest of all my excursions of discovery in the deserted portion of the castle, less than a week before that fatal hour which I felt must mark the utmost limit of my stay on earth, beyond which I could have not even the slightest hope of continuing to draw breath. That I came upon the culminating event of my whole life. I had spent the better part of the morning in climbing up and down the half ruined staircases. Half ruined staircase is one of the most dilapidated of the ancient turrets. As the afternoon progressed, I sought the lower levels, ascending into what appeared to be either a medieval place of confinement or a more recently excavated storehouse for gunpowder. As I slowly traversed the nature-encrusted passageway at the foot of the last staircase, paving became very damp, and soon I saw by the light of my flickering torch. I fell asleep. I fucking called it. Don't worry, Piku. By the way, Piku, you're just going. If you want to watch this again, or if you missed anything that you want to catch up on, this will be posted as a VOD. Nitro encrusted passageway at the foot of the last staircase. The paving became very damp, and soon I saw by the light of my flickering torch that a blank, water-stained wall impeded my journey. Turning to retrace my steps, my eye fell upon a small trapdoor with a ring, which lay directly beneath my feet. Pausing, I succeeded with difficulty in raising it, whereupon there was revealed a black aperture, exhaling noxious fumes which caused my torch to sputter, and disclosing in the unsteady glare the top of a flight of stone steps. As soon as the torch, which I lowered into the repellent depths, burned freely and steadily, I commenced my descent. I have to say thank you for that. Very comforting. I mean, turning to retrace my steps, my eye fell upon a small trapdoor with a ring, lay directly beneath my feet. Pausing, I succeeded with difficulty in raising it, whereupon there was revealed a black aperture, exhaling noxious fumes which caused my torch to sputter. and disclosing in the unsteady glare the top of the flight of stone steps. As soon as the torch, which I lowered into the repellent depths, burned freely and steadily, I commenced my descent. The steps were many, and led to a narrow, stone-flagged passage, which I knew must be far underground. What do you mean I have a nice... Oh, Marta, thanks so much for the raid. Welcome, Raiders. I'm Dr. Surgeons. I own the Flame Moth Tavern, and I'm an Immortal Moth VTuber. Raiders, if you're hungry, please feel free to get a snack. If you're thirsty, please feel free to get a drink. If you're tired, do not hesitate to raid and run. Right now, we're doing a more chill stream, and we are reading H.P. Lovecraft. Right now, we're reading a story known as The Alchemist. You have a nice voice, say otherwise, and you won't be able to. We got that raid into a raid energy. Alright, let me give you a shout out because I see Kaiju there. I'm going to chat him out as well. Alright, so we're going to let these run through, and then I will be back to the reading. Raiders, right now we are reading an H.P. Lovecraft story called The Alchemist. If you guys want to stick around, please feel free to. We're probably going to read this one, and then one more short story, and then we will raid out. Huh? I shout out everyone, you. Fuck off. You rated me. I rated you. You rated fucking, I don't know. I say Mickey. Olivia, you are technically right with that pronunciation, by the way. Some people do say mackerel, some people say mackerel. The circle of life. Yeah, chat, if you guys want to do the fishing game while I read, please feel free to. Let me... No, but it is very wrong in Swedish. Oh. Okay, so... Okay, I'm gonna... Oh, okay, so it won't pull it up until that happens. Oh, we got an ad incoming in 1 minute. Just don't go to the deep south. They say more keeled. Okay, so I do want to say once I pull this up, we're gonna let the ads run. And then we will be going back into it. Let me just pull this up real fast. So, Raiders, reminder, we are doing, for anyone that cares, reminder that we're doing this. Whoever has the highest score on this leaderboard by the end of October will be given the very first VIP badge on my channel. This stream has made my respect for you skyrocket A+. How did I get second? You've been fishing a lot, and you've been getting some really good scores. Also, MP, if you're still here, you're falling behind. Olivia's catching up. Catch a whale, go ahead. Is the score based on KG? I don't know what determines the score. All I know is that your score goes up based on what the fish is worth. So, like, that 43 gold just added to Olivia's. There's also custom catches in here. Okay. Duck, Green Man, and a Wrestler. Yes, you did. Add some custom ones to mine. Yeah. Yeah, so there you go. Oh, hi, Kainu. Welcome in. Okay, ad break is running for 1:30, so we're just gonna sit here and talk for a bit. I'm gonna like kind of catch my breath, catch my breath, rest my throat a bit. I want to find out why Ellie's family dies in 32. We will be finding that out. Just want to let the ad break run through so that anybody who is not subbed. He read my text. Now he saw me. In my defense, I tend to have this habit of pinning who is who by the color coding because it tends to stick between streams. Part of that problem is that some is that it's not a very like diverse color scheme for the names. So, for example, on my screen for Streamlabs, Martyr and Olivia both have the exact same shade of purple. While on my phone, it's Martyr's name is yellow and Olivia's is purple. And yours is the same shade of green as I think Piku's. Yeah, you and Piku have the same shade of green. I think someone else also is green on here. So it throws me off when I see it. Also, for whoever is still here, thank you all for watching this. I didn't think that this stream was going to do well at all. I know the story. I'll be fucking off to not hear it for the 8th time. That's fair. 8 times, goddamn. All right, ad break is over. Welcome back, everyone. We're gonna be hopping right back into it. If anyone wants to keep talking in chat or wants to keep using the fish game, please feel free. Just find where I was at before. Okay. The passage proved of great length and terminated in a massive oaken door, dripping with the moisture of the place, and stoutly resisting all my attempts to open it. Ceasing after a time my efforts in this direction, I had proceeded back some distance towards the steps, when there suddenly fell to my experience one of the most profound and maddening shocks capable of reception by the human mind. Without warning, I heard the heavy door behind me creak slowly open upon its rusted hinge. My immediate sensations are incapable of analysis. Yeah, you're being fisherman. To be confronted in a place as thoroughly deserted as I had deemed the old castle, with evidence of the presence of man or spirit, produced in my brain a horror of the most acute description. When at last I turned and faced the seat of the ground, my eyes must have started from their orbits at the sight that they beheld. There, in the ancient Gothic doorway, stood a human figure. It was that of a man clad in a skull cap and long medieval tunic of dark color. His long hair and flowing beard were of a terrible and intense black hue and of incredible profusion. His forehead, high beyond the long usual dimensions, cheeks deep sunken and heavily lined with wrinkles, and his hands, long, claw-like, and gnarled, were of such deathly marvel-like whiteness as I have never seen anywhere elsewhere in man. His figure, lean to the proportions of a skeleton, was strangely bent and almost lost within voluminous folds of his particular garment. But strangest of all were his eyes, twin caves of abysmal blackness, profound in expression of understanding, yet inhuman in degree of wickedness. These were now fixed upon me, piercing my soul with their hatred and rooting me to the spot whereon I stood. At last the figure spoke in a rumbling voice that chilled me through with its dull hollowness, latent malevolence. The language in which the discourse was clothed, and the debased form of Latin used amongst the more learned men of the Middle Ages, and made familiar to me by my prolonged researches into the works of the old alchemists and chronologists. The apparition and spoke of the curse which had hovered over my house, told me of my coming end, dwelt on the wrong perpetrated dwelt on the wrong perpetrated by my ancestor against old Michael Mauvais, gloated over the revenge of Charles Le Sorcier. He told how the young Charles had escaped into the night, returning in after years to kill the heir, Godfrey the heir with an arrow just as he approached the age which had been his father's at his assassination. How he had secretly returned to the estate and established himself, unknown, in the even then deserted subterranean chamber whose doorway now frames the hideous narrator. How he had seized Robert, son of Godfrey, in a field, forced poison down his throat, and left him to die at the age of 32, thus maintaining the foul provisions of his vengeful curse. At this point, I was left to imagine the solution, greatest mystery of all, how the curse had been fulfilled since that time when Charles Le Sorcier must in the course of nature have died. For the man digressed into an account of the deep chemical studies, two wizards, father and son, speaking particularly of this researches of Charles Le Sorcier concerning the elixir which should grant to him who partook of it eternal life and youth. His enthusiasm had seemed for the moment, from his terrible eyes, the hatred that had at first so haunted them. But suddenly the fiendish glare returned, the shocking sound like the hissing of a serpent. The stranger raised a glass phial with an intent of ending my life as had Charles Le Sorcier 600 years before ended that of my ancestor. Prompted by some preserving instinct of self-defense, I broke through the spell that had hitherto held me immovable, and flung my now dying torch at the creature who had menaced my existence. I heard the phial break harmlessly against the stones of the passage as the tunic of the strange man caught fire and lit with the horrid scene, the ghastly radiance. The shriek of fright and impotent malice emitted by the would-be assassin proved too much for my already shaken nerves, and I fell prone upon the slimy floor in a total faint. When at last my senses returned, all was frightfully dark, and my mind, remembering what had occurred, shrank from the idea of beholding more, yet curiosity overmastered all. Who, I asked myself, was this man of evil, and how came he within the walls of the castle? Why should he seek to avenge the poor death of Michael Mauvais? And how had the curse been carried on through all of the long centuries since the time of Charles Le Sorcier? The dread of the years was lifted from my shoulders, for I knew that he whom I had felled was the source of all my danger from the curse, and now that I was free, I burned with the desire to learn more of the sinister thing which had haunted my line for centuries, and made of my own youth one long continued nightmare. Determined upon and further exploration, I felt in my pockets for flint and steel, and used the unused and lit the unused torch which I had with me. First of all, the new light revealed the distorted and blackened form of the mysterious stranger. The hideous eyes were now closed. Disliking the sight, I turned away and entered the chamber beyond the Gothic door. Here I found what seemed much like an alchemist's laboratory. In one corner was an immense pile of shining yellow metal that sparkled gorgeously in the light of the torch. It may have been gold, but I did not pause to examine it, for I was strangely affected by that which I had undergone. At the farther end of the apartment was an opening leading out into one of the many wild ravines of the dark hillside forest. Filled with wonder, yet now realizing how the man had obtained access to the chateau, I proceeded to return. I had intended to pass by the remains of the stranger with averted face, but as I approached the body, I seemed to hear emanating from it a faint sound, as though life were not yet wholly extinct. Aghast, I turned to examine the charred and shriveled figure on the floor. Then, all at once, the horrible eyes, blacker than even the seared face in which they were set, opened wide with an expression I was unable to interpret. The cracked lips tried to frame words which I could not well understand. Once I caught the name of Charles Le Sorcier. And again, I fancied that the words years and curse issued from the twisted mouth of. Still, I was at a loss to gather the purport of his disconnected speech. At my evident ignorance of his meaning, the pitchy eyes once more flashed malevolently at me, until, helpless as I saw my opponent to be, I trembled as I watched him. Suddenly, the wretch, animated with his last burst of strength, raised his hideous head from the damp and sunken pavement. Then, as I remained, paralyzed with fear, he found his voice, and in his dying breath screamed forth those words which have ever afterward haunted my days and nights. "Fool!" he shrieked. "Can you not guess my secret? Have you no brain whereby you may recognize the will which has through 6 long centuries fulfilled the dreadful curse upon your house? Have I not told you of the great elixir of eternal life? Know you not how the secret of alchemy was solved? I tell you, it is I that have I have lived for 600 years to maintain my revenge, for I am Charles Le Sorcier." My throat hurts after that one, I'm gonna be real. Thank you for the hydrate. That's the end of The Alchemist. So, here's the really funny part about this story that I was saying. I got a nugget, tasty. So here's the really funny part about that story. He's cursed that all the men of his family will die before they turn 32. And they think it's some supernatural curse, like a demon deal. No, just a it's just this guy breaking into the house and killing them. And his fucking name means Charles the Wizard. Like a dock? Yes, there is a fishable dock in that river, that lake, whatever it is. Also, I saw Shin in chat earlier. Welcome in. Alright, so I'm gonna pull up. Let's see who's in the leaderboard now. Oh, okay, it's a little closer to what I was expecting. Yeah, who is? Show? What? Oh, okay. So MP has lost her lead. I think that she has gone to either lurking or she could be busy playing games. So MP is now in third place. Piku is in fourth, so Piku could sneak up and take this. Faye could catch up pretty easily if she were here. But okay, that sounded way douchier than I wanted it to be. I understand that Faye is sick and like resting, but if she were here, she'd probably be doing that fucking ballistically. I am using that phrase. I'm using that word horribly wrong. And then Gainu is in first right now. Yeah, so I think that's gonna be the last story that I read because like I said, my throat is starting to hurt from reading these. But how did everyone feel about these? I want to ask. What did everyone think? I was thinking the narrator was imagining the curse and he winds up murdering a random person who like a gardener or something. That is fair. I've never read this. I already heard what this was about, but I think the thing that got me interested, weird drawing of a fish. The thing that got me interested was just the fact that the guy's name is literally Charles the Wizard. All right, so I'm gonna let you guys get a few more fishes in, and then I will be pulling up someone to raid out. Let me see who's live that I follow. All right, so I know who we're raiding out to. We're gonna raid out to Elf Max, who has they just got back into streaming. So I think it's a good idea to send them a raid. Hey, fuck, 10 people are watching? Where did you all come from? Also, in terms of what you said earlier, Gainu, what the fuck do you mean you like my voice acting? Alright, so I'm going to get the raid messages in chat. Loved your reading stream. It makes you very unique on Twitch. Thank you. Alright, so there is the raid message if you're subbed. Okay, I can't copy it a lot, but there we go. All right, so we're rating out in 5, 4, 3, 2. Thank you all for watching, by the way. Thank you so much.